Now, when trying to elicit thoracic extension from clients, working away from the prone position, away from the Cobra position, may actually get you better results. So working in some other positions, using some other props, and then going back later to the Cobra. I find one of the best shapes and exercises is just the good old cat, or the cat-cow stretch, because the client has much more space around their body to work with. So if you think of your basic cat stretch, which is just knees under hips and wrists under shoulders, we've got two main shapes. We've got our flexion shape, which is not our Cobra shape, our good old C shape. And then we have the reverse shape, which is often called the cow part of the cat-cow, our extension. So there's our nice even extension. And I'm thinking of the same cueing as I did in prone, which was to press away from the floor and send the chest through the frame of the arms. So again, it's about the chest leading. Now to get that, I am actively pressing away from the floor, because this is what it looks like otherwise. And this is what you might see a lot with your clients. Cat, cow. So complete loss of control of the movement. You've got lots of cervical movement, a dumping into the lumbar, and not really a maximal thoracic. But once we add that push, once we add that chest through the frame of the hands, everything else will just fall into place. So the cat stretch, just the round back, pushing away from the floor, and then the Cobra shape, push away from the floor, send the chest forward. So you could say chest, you could say collarbone, you could say you're wearing a pendant here and you're sending that pendant up and forward, any of those things that might resonate with your client. Now, to get good thoracic extension, we really need to bring in spinal rotation and spinal lateral flexion. Now that's a whole nother video, which we don't have time to do now, but while you're in your cat-cow, it's pretty easy to just layer in a good old thread the needle. So we start to bring rotation into our extension, as you see here. It's going to just free up the whole chain. It's going to help create a lot more traction for the spine in general and better overall extension. So that cat-cow, you really, really can't go past the cat-cow. I use that all the time. Another one that I really, really, really like is working an overhead arm. Now, I'm going to use the lever of the arm at this point to try and drive some thoracic extension. And I'm going to do it over a roller, because if I lie over a roller, it's naturally going to open my chest. But here is the kicker. We've got to block this, because this is where, we're not doing the Beyonce, we're just trying to open the thoracic. So really important in the setup of this is that lumbar spine is going to be flexed. So you're going to be actually lengthening and pressing the lumbar, the lower back into the roller. Okay, so that's an important part of the setup here. And then from there, breathing will help as well. Starting to use the arms as a way to drive some opening into the chest, which is in itself creating thoracic extension. So as the lumbar stays flexed, arms go overhead. Now you could just as easily do this standing against a wall. But again, the cue would be the same. Press the back waistband or press the bottom of the shirt into the wall, just as we're doing here in the roller. So it would not be this. Because then again, I'm working my lumbar extension, but at the expense of missing out on isolating thoracic. It would be instead, lengthen that waistband into the roller, reach the arms back, only to that point. That is the limit, and then return. And over time, that range of your overhead arm is going to increase. From there, it might be nice to add in some of those W's as well. But just keep in mind that control around the lumbar spine. And also some circles. Or any other kind of arm variation that works overhead. and challenges the lumbar position to remain slightly flexed. Maybe even this. So many options. Feels really good. Chest opening, and by extension, slight thoracic extension. Now, if you want to make that a little bit more explicit, you could actually turn the roller. I'm still going to cue the lumbar flexion. So this is still flexed. If you can see here, I'm not extending, I'm flexing. Roller around that thoracic, and then letting that extension happen. But again, I'm trying not to drive there, not lumbar. Hold on to that. Come up as high as you can, and then this section, think of upper thoracic. Try and get the upper thoracic over the roller. Try and get your chest opening without losing the lumbar flexion. And then you can start to bring that into a little bit of mobility up and back. So essentially a little curl up, with the emphasis being lengthen back over into the extension. And you remember that I mentioned rotation as being important to getting better extension? Well, hey, there's some rotation as well. Now, if you do not have one of these babies, will also work with just a good old squishy ball. I call this an over ball. Same thing, place it up quite high, right up towards the top or middle of the shoulder blades. Make sure you're in that lumbar flex position, and same variation. For those struggling to keep the lumbar flex position, bend the knees, because that will bias that even further. So just move that a little bit out of the way so you can see. And there it is again. The straight legs is a little harder because again that leg lever is wanting to pull the lumbar into extension, and we're trying to say keep it flexed. Oh, that feels so good. I could just lay here all day, but that would get to be a pretty boring video, just watching me relax and open my chest. All right, now, just before we go, I want to show you one last one that I really like, and it brings us back to our prone position, which ultimately is where our Cobra is. Now, it can be done with the full roller, but again, the full roller is pretty high and requires a lot of shoulder range that not all clients have. So I find that using just a good old pool noodle, now these cost, this is half of one, they cost only $2 in our Australian $2 shops. I'm sure you have similar in England. A little bit smaller and thinner. Remember I mentioned overhead arms being a good way to create thoracic extension? Well, this is overhead arms, and it's also prone, and it's kind of also your Cobra. So arms about shoulder distance, straight if possible. Connect up that lumbar flexion again, so I'm basically doing a slight tuck in the pelvis and a squeeze of the glutes. I'm going to start with a few shoulder shrugs or scapular elevations to get moving. And then I'm going to use that shrug down to lift up. So it's like as the scapula are going down, I'm lifting up. And a cue that works really well here is push down to lift up. So I'm pushing down into that roller and then lifting the chest up. And again, this could be small, like that, or it could be large, like that, more towards your full Cobra. Now, not everyone is going to be able to do this with straight arms, so allow people, if needed, allow your clients to bend their elbows and then press up. So again, shorten the lever for them a little bit. Down. Up. So, up. And that really is not so different from being here and pressing down to lift up. And that brings us straight back to our Cobra, which is where we started. So there you have it, or as the Australians say, Bob's your uncle. Very old saying, nobody really says that. I've learned after living here for so long. Thank you for watching. I hope that gave you some good ideas about the Cobra and how to work through thoracic extension.